RPG Lessons Learned. When the game is over, when your players are gone, that's when lessons are learned. Find us online at rpgllpodcast.com, email us at rpgllpodcast@gmail.com, and find us on Blue Sky at rpgll. Hi, welcome to RPG Lessons Learned, the show where you can learn from our mistakes. I'm Dusty, and with me as always is Tanner. Hi, Tanner.
Hey, Dusty, and what a mistake we have today to talk about. Your opinion on a computer game called Baldur's Gate 3.
We are going to draw some hate comments with this one because my opinion is unpopular. I despise the game. I hate the game.
Interesting. Well, maybe we should talk about our background and how much of it we've played. And also, it's so funny that we're recording this in 2025, and this would have been like the most timely conversation like 2 years ago about this game. But you know what? It's one of the biggest games ever released, so it's worth talking about, I think.
It's still timely. Who doesn't love being late to the party with a bad opinion?
That's right. So I have 130 hours in Baldur's Gate, and that is about 110 hours of that are one campaign that I did in co-op with my wife, which was awesome. I don't think the game is perfect. I do think it is a 10 out of 10 in terms of like what it achieves and how it is kind of the best role-playing game ever made in certain regards. Dusty, you have a measly 13 hours in this game before you called it quits.
That was all I could stomach.
Interesting. I guess we should start by saying that we have hot takes about D&D 5e. Are those takes germane to your opinion on this game?
Very much so.
Okay, let's hear it.
So I think I have three major contentions, and I'll go from most important to least important. The most important is that I utterly hate combat, and combat is a big, big part of the game. I will praise the game insofar as I recognize that combat is beautifully lifted, sans grid, but otherwise beautifully lifted from 5e. So if you know 5e and you know 5e combat, you're going to be able to play Baldur's Gate 3, right down to all the spells, including utility spells that you can use in interesting ways. But that, I'm going to use the term slavish devotion to 5e in a computer game. It just wasn't what I was expecting. Like my friends at work were like, you've got to try this game. You've got to try this game. And I was expecting something more like Skyrim or an action RPG. And I don't think my expectations were unreasonable because I've played a lot of D&D video games. I have played whatever that game is called where you're in that mountain with the dwarves and the goblins are invading. I forget what it's called, but it's the action. I have played the Mystara arcade game, the Chronicles of Mystara, which combines two games like Tower of Doom and something else. And I enjoyed the arcade game. I've played a fair amount of Skyrim, though I've never beaten it. I've played a fair amount of Morrowind and beaten it. I've played all these different, and I know Skyrim and Morrowind are not D&D, but I've played a lot of games where in a computer game, it's a little more real time, and it's not slavishly devoted to moving pieces around on a beautifully crafted virtual tabletop, but a virtual tabletop nonetheless. God, combat is slow. Like, I didn't enjoy 5e combat when I was with my friends, socializing, laughing, and having a good time. So the last thing I want to do is by myself move pieces around a virtual tabletop and play D&D chess. God, it was boring.
So you said that you had a lot of experience. I would say that your calibrations were wrong. This game is called Baldur's Gate 3. It is like the first two Baldur's Gate games. Yes, those games were real time in nature, but I think that this game is totally a continuation of what the first two in the series are, if not, real time with pause, which I've played a lot of CRPGs after this, and I have opinions about real time with pause. It sounds like you kind of like that, though, where, people are just kind of doing their thing, and then you can pause and give orders if you want to. You don't want to have to take 4 turns every turn.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take 30 minutes of real time to knock out a 30-second combat.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I think this game would have benefited from having a AI controlled mode that you can toggle on and off, where like if you have Lae'zel in your party and you're like, I don't want to play a fighter, I'm going to toggle on this AI, and she will generally like try to move to an enemy and use her full attack every turn or something like that. I think that would have gone a long way, but that was just the first of your complaints. I'm taking that in. So let's hear number 2.
Number 2 is I didn't find any of the characters likable. On playthroughs, I tend to go like, if it's a BioWare game, I tend to go like full light path. Maybe later I'll play with some, darker playthrough elements, but I tend to go full light path. I didn't find any of the characters to have a compelling full light path. I chose Shadowheart for my first playthrough because I wanted to play a cleric. I wanted to be.
So you did not create your own character.
I did. That's my third complaint. We'll get there.
Gotcha. We'll get there.
For my initial, I just was like, okay, I want to play a cleric. Okay, boom, Shadowheart's the only cleric. All right, I guess I'm playing this cleric lady. And then, I don't know, I didn't research her. I didn't read it. I just picked her because she was a cleric. And then as I'm playing like 10 of the 13 hours with her, I'm like, wait a minute, is she some kind of like evil cleric worshiping a dark god who's like super into violence? Like, this sucks. I wanted to be a Jedi. Like, I was trying to be like a good cleric, like laying on hands, saving people, but also I've got plate mail and a mace. Yeah. That's what I wanted to do. So I didn't find her likable. And then I went back and was like, well, let me choose a different character and start over. Someone who is likable, maybe Lizelle, because I liked Lizelle and I can just will be, tough, but not heal. And I'm reading, and then this time I actually read about people.
Yeah.
And I didn't like any of them. They're all like really intensely unlikable. So if I don't like the protagonist, I can't play the game. Your rebuttal.
My rebuttal is that the game starts you with 2 party members who I think on a D&D alignment chart are evil. I would agree with that. I think Lae'zel is like lawful evil because she does have like a code of honor that she tries to stick to. She's very much into the supremacy of the Githyanki and all this stuff. I would say Shadowheart's like neutral evil. She certainly worships an evil god, Shar. But I don't know how long you played, but you also meet Will, who is the most chaotic good character in the game early on.
I did meet Will.
If you ever meet Karlach, who is also very chaotic good, the tiefling barbarian.
I've seen her on YouTube videos, but I did not meet her in either of my playthroughs or either of my attempts to play.
She's a little bit later in Act 1, but that you can meet her. You can kind of like go right to her if you know where she is, but otherwise it's unlikely that you would meet her early. And Astarion, who I don't like. Astarion feels like that he's also, I would say, just an evil character in alignment sense as a vampire who's trying to
the British vampire.
Yeah.
I
really don't like his performance either. I think the voice actor is good and talented because I've heard him in other stuff. I think the direction that they went with his personality is a little like the effect that they impressed upon him, I don't think was a good direction choice. I'll say that. So that being said, and you don't plan on ever returning to this game again, right? Am I okay to spoil things? Dear listener, I'm going to spoil Baldur's Gate 3 for you. So everybody, this is your chance to bail if you have not played Baldur's Gate 3.
Do you want to hear third complaint?
Oh, yes. Well, let's do that. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I just say, is this germane to complaint 2, or do you want third complaint?
I think it's germane to complaint 2. So I'm going to say, dear listener, this is the end of your line if you haven't finished Baldur's Gate 3. You can redeem Shadowheart, and you basically, her story, her companion arc is about her being raised in an abusive religious environment. And you can, as a good choice or an evil choice, you can either have her embrace the power that brings with it or have her reject that, and she becomes a good character. Similar with Lae'zel, you eventually meet the queen, I forget her name, but the Githyanki queen, who is basically a god. Things start happening in the story with the mind flayers and stuff like that, where you can decide with Lae'zel, hey, your god is fake and is using you, or you can say no, accept the power that your fake god is giving you. And Lae'zel does a complete 182. So Astarion's story with his vampire sire is really good. It gets there, but a lot of these things, I will grant you, don't happen until Act 3 of the game when you're 100 hours into it. So your criticism of these people aren't likable to me is valid. I will say they do not stay that way, and they evolve over the course of the story like a good character should.
While I hear that, I think I've talked before about being a voracious reader when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember distinctly the first novel that I did not finish. It was the novelization to Batman Forever. I have no idea who wrote the novelization. If you're listening, I doubt it.
He's on blast now.
Then, oops, too bad, so sad. But I was reading that book and I was like, I had powered through some terrible books because I thought it was this virtue of if you start a book, you finish the book.
Yeah.
And that was the first time where I was like, my parents spent $3.99 on this book back in the day, cover price.
Yeah.
I think. And I don't want them to waste the money, but I also hate this. I think I'm going to put this book back on my shelf and never, ever think about it again.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, my thinking has evolved. Now I'm like, I don't finish books all the time. My life on this, my time on this earth is limited.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to waste it chasing something where the author wasn't good enough to hook me in the first couple pages. This game was not good enough to hook me in the first couple hours.
I think that it's totally valid to obviously spend your limited time on Earth however you want. That being said, I see so much advice online with games of people being like, when should I put this game down if I'm not feeling it? And people always say, well, if you're asking yourself, that means it's time to put the game down. I think that assuming you have enough free time in your life to pursue a moderate amount of games and stuff, I think it is good for the human spirit to overcome some adversity to understand something better, why you like it or not. I'm not saying play the 130-hour game that you hated at hour 3. I'm saying if I put down every game that got kind of annoying at one part, I would have a much less rich life than I do now. And sometimes, and you obviously the only person who knows where that line is you. But there are so many times where I endeavor to kind of power through something to see what's there, because at least I'll understand my own tastes better, even if I don't end up liking this thing better. That being said, obviously this is an opinion that comes with some assumptions that you have the free time to do this and stuff like that. But I think trying to maximize joy per hour strictly can leave you kind of as a dopamine addicted rat who you're going to do is watch TikToks for, and maybe, this isn't a fair comparison. I totally, Dusty's laughing if you can't see him, dear listener, but like, I do think you kind of got to power through sometimes if something is that critically acclaimed to at least give it a shot. And I'm not saying you didn't give it a shot, but I'm saying that's just a philosophy of mine in general.
No, I agree. It's a balance. You can't abandon everything when it gets annoying.
Yeah.
And there's certainly games that I've powered through. I'll have to look at my game library to like think of it to give you a good example. But there are games I have powered through and they got a little annoying and it's been a rich experience in the end. But Baldur's Gate 3 did not earn enough credit with me, and I didn't see enough diamonds in the rough or glimmers of hope. I just didn't see those things to continue to invest in my time, and I stand by that decision. I would also say, you played how many hours?
130.
I played how many hours?
13.
So is 10% a fair shake? I think
no, I agree. I think that the interesting part is that I kind of differ. I think the game gets better as it goes. A lot of people don't. They think that what you played is like the highlight of the game, which is interesting.
God.
What in terms of like that first Act 1 zone with the druids and all these other kind of stuff that you can get into. So again, would I like Dusty to have played more? Of course, it's a game I deeply love. However, I understand. I think 13 hours of time on this earth is plenty. Basically, my thing is you should play until you have a fully formed opinion to yourself about something. And I think you do. You don't sound like, yeah, you know what, Tanner, maybe you're right. Maybe Act 2 is good, but I don't know if I'm going to get there or not. Then I would say, Dusty, I don't think you have a fully formed opinion, but it sounds like you're pretty set in your opinion of it. So I'm not going to tell you to play more. I think you played plenty.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm typed out.
Yep.
Third complaint. And this gets into a little bit of, I don't know, you could argue the Puritanism in America or perhaps my own discomfort with nudity and sex in media presented casually. But for my third character, I went to do a custom character. I was like, you know what? Damn it. I want to be a good cleric. I really wanted to be a good cleric. So let me make my own. So I played 10 hours of shadow art, probably roughly. And then for 3 hours, so I had to make my own character. And as I'm making my own character and I'm walking through all the options, I forget which one was first. But I get down to genitalia.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, oh my God, why is this in the game? Why am I looking on my screen right now at a fully nude 3D model that I did not expect? It came out of nowhere as I'm rolling up, strength, constitution, dexterity, whatever, as I'm choosing class, as I'm choosing like facial features. And then to me, out of nowhere, boom, there's a naked person on my screen and a good amount of detail.
Sure. And I think that that's fair. How far did you get into Cyberpunk, by the way? Because I think that game starts
same thing. And I'm like, Jesus, why?
Yeah.
Why?
So I think it's really interesting that Baldur's Gate 3, for how Puritan and unoffensive 5e the tabletop game is, it is a very vanilla ice cream safe thing. I'm surprised they let them go beyond PG-13 with Baldur's Gate 3. You know what I mean? Because
I was also surprised.
What you saw would not have been in the D&D movie.
Yes.
I think it's interesting how much control that Larian had with Baldur's Gate 3 that they were able to make the kind of game that they wanted to make. It didn't offend me. I'm not in a household with any children who could be wandering about, so it's not something that offended me. I think it just goes down to player expression. This is a horny game. You get propositioned quite a bit early on. If you would agree, Dusty.
Well, I was complaining about the game too, those same friends, and I got to this part, and I was like, "Look, I don't mean to sound like a prude,
yeah,
but I'm here to kill goblins and save the world.
Yeah,
I'm not here to have sex with my party members." And someone piped up and said, "It's basically a dating sim with light combat," and they were very excited by this. And I'm like, Man, dating sims are cringe as hell to me. Like, that's the last thing I want to play.
Well, dating sims are awesome. You're wrong on that. The idea that, I don't know, for me, Baldur's Gate 3 is trying to be what BioWare games were, in the sense of everything from Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 through Dragon Age and Mass Effect, back when those series were like making good games. This is like an entire BioWare trilogy in one game. And I'm not joking about that. Like, if you're just looking at the runtime, you could play all 3 Mass Effect games in less time than one Baldur's Gate 3 run. It is an enormous game, and each act feels like its own game. It's an entire trilogy at once. And I think that they're trying to follow that BioWare formula of having an adventuring party, going on this quest, learning more about your companions, being able to romance them. One thing I like is that the romance and the sex in it is not treated as the ultimate reward for being with this person for an entire game. It's like there are characters who like to casually hook up, and there are characters who do not, and there are characters who are fine with some stuff and who aren't fine with others. I think that it's part of the reason why the game got such a broad appeal on like social media and stuff, the fact that it can be a dating sim with light combat elements. And I understand if that's something that is resented, but that's kind of what these fantasy games always kind of were. If you look at Dragon Age, if you look at Mass Effect, I think that this game is like more than the sum of its parts, and it's all these other parts from games like The Witcher or BioWare games, old and new, and all rolled in together to be this product that is more than the sum of its parts. I love the performance of the narrator. I think she's awesome. Like, your game master, I think her voice is really, really well done. Yeah, I think it's awesome. I had so many moments in this that felt like D&D moments that like could have happened at a table with friends, and I was like cheering in my seat with playing next to my wife. Can I tell you about some of them?
Yeah, go for it.
I played a dwarven paladin named Skodolf Boulderbane, and there is a mission late in the game in Act 3 where you have to go to an underwater facility that's like a dungeon where a bunch of political prisoners are being held. And as you go into there, the place starts falling apart and flooding, and you have a time limit of how many turns you can take to get everybody on the elevator onto the submarine up and out. Okay. Did you play XCOM 2 at all?
I have not.
Okay. It felt a lot like an XCOM mission where it's like, here, this is a like contained space. It's a dungeon. You have 12 turns and you need to get everybody from one place to the other. And so We were strategizing. We were being like, well, I can teleport, but I can't bring somebody with me if I teleport. So maybe I can use it on the way in. And then there are enemies in there. So it's like, maybe we should just use crowd control, like stun these enemies so we can run past them, all this stuff. And then we realized with about 2 or 3 turns in, me and my wife, me and her character were like, we're not both going to make it out of here. We have these options, like we can get people out of here, but like one of us is going to have to quote unquote hold them off. And I said, I'm the paladin. I'm going to sacrifice myself so that I can do this. So this wasn't a story thing. This was an emergent gameplay moment. There was not a choice on the menu who was going to stay behind, like a video game. It felt like a tabletop moment of being like, I'm the only one who can do this. Even though I'm a dwarf with low move speed, I can't be stopped. I'm going to do what I have to do. I stayed behind and I got everybody to safety as my paladin, and my character died. And then I washed up on shore, and my wife used one of her scrolls of resurrection on me, and we were back in the adventure. And that felt like D&D to me, in terms of like I was actually role playing my character. I was doing what a lawful good dwarf would do. The story was made better for it because I was playing my character this way.
If she hadn't used her scroll of resurrection, could you have come in as a new character?
Yeah, I could have like taken control of Lae'zel or somebody, I believe. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But you couldn't have made like another custom character.
I don't know. Actually, I don't. No, I think you could. I think you can make a custom character and then like join the party late. I think I would be like super low level. The game has had a lot of updates since I've played it too, so I'm not exactly sure. But I did that not knowing that I could just be resurrected,
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's a way you could have let that story moment stand.
Yeah, it's possible. But I was invested in my guy. I killed some dragons by then, so I don't know. I think it's an interesting game. I don't think it's perfect, despite me thinking it's a 10 out of 10 game. I just think that what it achieves so totally overshadows all the little complaints that I have with it, that I think it is the best role-playing game ever made up till now.
I think I'm going to go try to play at some point. The RoboCop DLC comes out soon in like 5 days. I'm going to play that first. But I think I might try to play Legend of Grimrock because I've been on this OSR kick in my tabletop in-person gaming life. I think another reason I didn't like it but didn't have the moment or words for until this moment, I just don't like the whole 5e, you're basically a superhero thing.
Yep.
So I'm like, why has sex not been a part of my tabletop games? It's a normal part of human life. Well, number one, I don't play with people that I want to have those conversations with. But number two, I tend to play an older school style where it's survival horror.
Yeah.
You're not superheroes who are, having a sexy fun time saving the world. You're in a dungeon trying desperately to survive, and it's dirty and gritty, and you're eating rancid meat. And
Baldur's Gate is not that. If there's one thing I wanted more dungeons from it, honestly. There's only a couple of them, and the big one is in Act 2, and then there's another big couple in Act 3. But yeah, I think that the game, I'm having so much fun with this, but like it's missing. It feels like an adventurous romp overland rather than dungeon crawling. So if there's one thing I could recommend to you, have you ever had any interest in Pillars of Eternity? I think we've talked about it a little bit. It's a really, really great world, and it's made by Obsidian, who did Fallout New Vegas and all those games. And it's a top-down, real-time with pause, Baldur's Gate-like, but it's mostly text. The writing is like really, really good. It is high fantasy, but there's plenty of dungeon crawling. There's plenty of survival stuff in it. I'd really recommend that to you. And it's frequently like $5 on Steam, the first one. And then the second one is all like pirate themed and stuff. So
I'll check it out.
At the start of those games, you can decide, do I want to play this game real time with pause, or do I want to play it turn based? So if you want to speed it up, there are some options there.
Got it. Well, yeah, good discussion. I appreciate your point of view. And certainly I don't think either of us are wrong. As we've said before, how can you be wrong about your preferences for entertainment of all things?
Well, there's nothing worse in life than somebody being wrong about a video game that you like, though. To be fair,
I hear you, and I'm sorry I've inflicted that pain upon you.
It's okay. I just don't really know how to think about you right now. No, it's fine. I think that if we could draw some lessons here, I think that this is an expectations thing. I think that you went into the game with different expectations than what it was. You
Very true.
expected something a little bit more grounded, something a little bit less horny, a little bit more like good guys fighting evil, and Baldur's Gate isn't really that. I think, again, I'm not trying to toot its horn about everything. I don't think it's a perfect game, but it is, a turn-based RPG with a lot of combat where you're hanging out with some bad guys sometimes, and sometimes people get their penises out.
Fair.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that, or
if we're going to add this to a tabletop lesson, we've said it before: setting expectations with your players, making sure expectations are aligned, is an important thing in your tabletop gaming, because this kind of thing can happen even at the tabletop. If someone's expecting an OSR game and you pull out some super heroic fantasy or high fantasy, if someone's expecting a story-driven game and you pull out some survival horror, AD&D 1E or BX, this kind of thing can happen at your table, as well as, games acquired during Steam's summer sale and attempted for 13 hours.
Yep. And then I'll add a third thing, kind of what I was talking about earlier. You should engage with something long enough to have an opinion on it. Don't just turn away from something at the first point of friction, because a lot of the best things in the world do require some stuff from you as a reader or a watcher or a player, and they require some friction, like OSR games. Like, the OSR games have a ton of friction in terms of, how easy it is to get into it as a new player and get on board with everything. But if you quit the game the first time that a goblin stabs your character or something, and I'm not saying Dusty did this, obviously he played a lot of the game, but or if you get to a paragraph in a book that you don't really understand and it uses vocabulary you don't like, stick with it, give it an honest shot if it's something you care about, and just try to learn your own opinions better too.
I will say on both playthroughs, I stopped in that first, I'll call it a goblin dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a ton of goblins in, a temple or something. Yep. And there's a couple of drow running around. Both times I just got sick of booting up the game, playing 30 minutes of a combat, saving and walking away, booting up the game, playing another 30-minute I just got sick of those goblins and those drow in that temple.
I also think it's not a good game if you have 30 minutes of free time sporadically available to play it.
That is me.
Yeah. So, well, hopefully you're a more informed player and gamer now, and you're going to pick something good to play next, like RoboCop's DLC.
Yep, fair. All right, thank you for listening. People call them reviews, postmortems, retrospectives. We call them lessons learned, and we're sharing ours with you.